You right, we're good. We're good.
Go ahead.
Welcome to Be a Baller podcast, where we discuss how to build a lifelong legacy. I'm your host, Coach Tim Brown. Today, I'm excited to have in studio with me the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner, Archie Griffin. Today on the show, Archie will share his experience growing up in a sports family and playing for the legendary football coach Woody Hayes. Archie is a true man of faith, and we'll talk about the role faith has helped him become the godly and humble man he is today. Archie is now and always has been committed to paying it forward and helping others. Archie, welcome to Be a Baller podcast.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you having me, Tim.
Yeah, I'm excited to get you in here. I didn't know if I can get you in here the way you was dancing on that field when you dotted that I.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, that was a busy day, and quite frankly, it was a wonderful day.
Yeah,
I mean, because I never expected any of that to happen, certainly with the dotting of the I. I mean, only very few amount of people have ever done that outside of the band members, and then with the statue dedication, and so that's something I never really expected, and it ended up being just a wonderful thing for myself along with my family, because I don't know if you remember, but we were out to Pasadena, California, because they did the same statue out at the Rose Bowl, and the whole family went out and just had a marvelous time there in Pasadena. It was really a fun time, and then to come back here and do it here 2 weeks later. It was rough go, but we had a bunch of fun, big time fun.
Good. No place like home.
No place like home.
Yeah. You know, speaking of that, I know family is important to you. Can you talk about growing up in Columbus and the life lessons you learned from your parents?
Okay. Look, I come from a fairly large family. I've got 6 brothers and a sister. My 3 older brothers were all born in West Virginia. I was the first to be born here in Columbus at the Ohio State University Hospital. And growing up, it was fun. I mean, having 3 older brothers to look up to really made a difference in my life. My oldest brother, Jimmy, went to East High School. And, I can remember as a kid going to East High School, watching Jimmy play football at Harley Field. They had some great teams back then, and what I really remember about that is watching East High School's band. Our band was really, really exciting to watch. But they had some good high school football teams, and they won a city championship during the time that my brother Jimmy was there. And then the example that he was, when he left high school, he went on to college. At Muskingum College, and that set an example for all of us to follow, because as I was growing up, my folks, they had priorities for us. I mean, I feel really fortunate. My parents, they gave us priorities to live by, and one of those priorities, it was the second priority, was for all of us to get an education, a college education, and to see Jimmy go to college really set an example for the rest of us, because after that, my brother Larry, who graduated from Lyndon McKinley, he went on to University of Louisville. Then my brother Daryl, who graduated from Eastmore, same school I went to Kent State. And then myself, Raymond, and Duncan, we all went to Ohio State. And then my youngest brother Keith went to Miami, Florida, and did some great things there. And then my sister Crystal went to Drake University on track scholarship. And all of us went to school on scholarship, because not only was education important, but they also wanted us to participate in athletics. And they wanted us to participate in athletics because they felt that athletics, it really rounds a person out. It teaches you a lot of valuable lifelong lessons, things such as the will to win, coping with pressure, getting along in a team situation, and all those things are so very important, because those things help you in life. And so they taught us all those things, and they wanted us to learn those things because they felt that they would help us be successful in life.
That's good. Growing up playing sports, was football your favorite sport? I know everybody else is playing
people
football.
ask me that all the time, but quite frankly, the sport that I had the most fun playing was basketball. I always enjoyed playing. I always enjoyed going out shooting basketballs. And you can shoot basketballs by yourself. It's kind of hard to play football by yourself. So I always had a lot of fun playing basketball. But I played all kinds of sports. I mean, I was not one to just play one sport. When I was in elementary school, we'd go out. We lived across the street from Blackburn playground, and we'd go over to the playground and we'd play football on the one field that we had at Blackburn. At that time, they had a field. They had a basketball court. They had swing set, and they had a sliding board. And that's pretty much all we had at Blackburn at that time. And we'd go over there and we'd play all kind of sports. And the one thing I do remember, they had a tetherball bowl. We played volleyball. But in the summertime, when Parks and Recreation would open up the parks, I mean, I'd play everything. I played softball. I played, matter of fact, me and a friend, I think we were I was in the third or fourth grade. We won the city Foursquare championship. Right, so I mean, we did all kinds of things. I loved playing tetherball and basketball and we just did it all. Softball. As a matter of fact, the city Columbus used to have age groups, age limit when you could come into the park, and I was probably too young, but they would always let me in the park because I had older brothers and my brothers were always in there playing. But Lee Williams. I remember Lee Williams would allow me to come into the park, and he let me play on the softball team, which I was probably too young to play on then, but he let me play on it, and I loved the experience that I had over there at Blackburn because I learned a lot from certainly my brothers, but all the other kids that were over there too, because we did all kind of things in Blackburn Playground that really helped me in growing up to be an athlete, because I felt that those kids at that time were good athletes, and I wanted to be able to compete with them, and was able to do that on a number of occasions, and it worked out very, very well for me. As a matter of fact, when I was 9 years old, I started playing organized football for the Maryland ACs. I don't know if a lot of people remember Maryland ACs. Maryland ACs was a tough team. I mean, Maryland ACs. And the guys were usually between the ages of 11 to 15, 11 to 14, somewhere in there. But I was a little heavy at the time. Right. As a matter of fact, Bob Rand, who was the coach, who was a tough coach, they kind of reminded me of Woody, as tough as he was. But he would make us run around Maryland Park. And Maryland Park, man, I thought at the time it was probably 2 miles in circumference. And you know what? It's not that far off, really, when you think about it, because I went over there as we were doing this stuff for the statue dedication, all that. And I went over to Maryland Park, and I looked at Maryland Park, and it's now Saunders Park, but I looked at Maryland Park, and I said, man, that's a long way to run when you're 9 years old. And when he'd make us run around the park before practice, I would always finish in last place. So one day he said, whoever finishes in last going to have to take an extra lap. Well, I said, look here, I can't finish in last place. I can barely make it around this place one time. I just cannot dream of having to try to run around it twice. Well, I remember this day we took off, and I jumped out in front of the whole group because I was going to make sure I didn't finish in last place. Got to the first corner, leading the whole pack. Got to that second corner, still leading the whole pack. Got to that third corner. The guy started passing me up. Got to that last corner, and I ended up finishing true to form in last place. And all I can remember is Coach Rand waving me on to take that extra lap. And I remember taking that extra lap, struggling. I probably walked a bit, and I'm sure I did. But when I got through with that lap, we lined up for calisthenics or exercises, and some of the guys were laughing, and I asked them what they were laughing about. They said, Archie, as you run around the park, Coach Rand kind of gave you a nickname. He called you Tank. He said, because you move so slow, you look like a big German tank just slowly rolling in the war. Well, that name Tank stuck with me for a while, and it became an affectionate name for me, to be honest with you. But the guys that I played with back then, some of them still call me Tank to this day, and it was a fun time because Maryland, I was too young really to be playing for them. I got in every game. I didn't play a lot, but I played guard on offense and nose guard on defense, and it was a fun time because it made me believe, or it gave me confidence that I could play with guys older than I was. So when it came time to playing with guys my own age, I felt a whole heck of a lot of confidence when I came to play with guys my own age. But it was a great experience. I loved playing for the Maryland ACs. We never lost a football game there, and I'll never forget that. But Bob Rand and the coaching staff there, they were great to us as kids. They treated us right. They worked us hard, and we won. We won.
You talked about those brothers
Yeah.
quite a bit. Can you talk about some of those backyard and competitive battles with those brothers? And also, who was the best athlete in the family?
Okay.
Let's tell the
Yeah.
truth there.
Well, if you had us all together, it would be a big argument right here because there was competition in the family. And when I grew up, and I'm not too proud to say. I mean, I'm not sad about saying it, but I wouldn't consider myself the best athlete in the family. I mean, I look at my brother Raymond when I was young. The kids in the Blackburn area, we used to race in the streets.
Okay.
And my brother Raymond used to beat me all the time. My younger brother, and I used to get teased by the kids. Your younger brother beat you and running. Well, he was pretty fast.
Right,
He was pretty fast, but they used to tease me all the time. But if you talk about the athletes, oh man, Raymond would have been one of the ones that I would consider as one of the best athletes. And I'd also have to consider my youngest brother Keith as one of the best athletes. Keith didn't go to Ohio State, but he ended up going to Miami of Florida, where they won their first national championship at Florida back in the 80s. And then he ended up getting drafted by the Washington Redskins and played there and won a Super Bowl championship. Oh, wow. So he had a great career. But I would consider him as one of the best. And then I throw my sister Crystal in there. Right. Crystal. She ran a race and track that I dreaded. I never really wanted to run, and that was the quarter. And she was a good track athlete. Ran for Drake University and did a wonderful job. But all my brothers were good athletes. I mean, again, somebody else would consider the other ones better athletes probably. But there were a lot of good athletes. We competed against each other. We had fun. I mean, we'd get in the streets and we'd run 50 yards, 60 yards, seeing who's the fastest, the whole works, and there was a lot of fun doing that. But I got teased a lot when my younger brother Ray would beat me running, and I always remembered the guys teasing me about that. So it gave me a little extra motivation to do other things a bit better. And I knew that it wasn't only running that counted is how you approach the game, how you approached, how your attitude was when it comes to the game. Yeah.
I know sports has been a big part of your life, but also know that you are a strong man of faith.
Yes.
I know that you're involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, some other Christian ministries. Can you share with the audience your faith journey?
Well, first of all, faith has always been a big part of my life. It starts with my parents. I mean, like I said, I was very fortunate to come from a large family, and then my parents were the type that gave us priorities to live by. I shared a couple of them earlier, but that first priority was for all of us to always trust in God. And they wanted us to trust in God because I always said if God's in control of life, then he's going to help you in any situation that you might find yourself in. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So it's the journey has been through the family all along. But I accepted Christ in my life when I was 13 years old. I remember I was at Bethel AME Church, and Reverend Jordan at Bethel AME at the time, we were at a Christian Endeavor meeting, and he sat down and talked with us about the importance of accepting Christ in our lives. And I remember that it was at that time that I accepted Christ in my life, and then the next week I got baptized, and then we went on from there. But Christ has always been a huge part of my life ever since. And anything that I do, I always think of Christ first and how would he want me to act in these situations that I come across. And so it's been very, very important to me to have faith. I used to get teased by some of my friends in junior high school when they come over and spend the night. I always pray before I go to bed, and I'll get down on my knees, and I do it to this day, and I'll pray before I go to bed. And that's just something that I always have done and always will do. But they used to tease me because they said, Archie prays so long. I said, well, at that time I was certainly trying to think of everything that I could think about to pray about, and so they used to make a joke about it, but deep down in my heart, that was important to me. I mean, that was important to me. It was important to get down and give thanks, for my family, give thanks for the fact that we had food on our table that we could eat, and thanks for my parents who provided for us. It wasn't easy, but they provided for 8 kids. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, and so I've always been appreciative. And when I get down and pray on my knees every night, that's what I'm doing. I'm thanking God for the opportunities that He's given me over the years, and thanking Him for my family. I'm thanking Him for the people I've come in contact with that's helped me along the way, and thank all the folks that have been a part of my life, because everybody together have made me who I am.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You chose to stay home and play football at The Ohio State University. Kind of what led to that decision, first off, and how was it playing for the great legendary coach Woody Hayes?
Wow. First of all, Ohio State was a place that I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to play at, because when I was coming up, Tim, there were not a lot of kids from the Columbus Public Schools that played at Ohio State. A guy that I knew that played at Ohio State was a guy by the name of Larry Wiggins, who played at Marion Franklin High School, and he was a year ahead of me in school. And I remember him going to Ohio State, but when I got to Ohio State, there were not many kids that were from the Columbus Public Schools that was at Ohio State. So coming up, I didn't think that Ohio State would really recruit me. I had some brothers who I thought were really good. My brother Larry, who played at Linda McKinley, was an all-state player, and Ohio State didn't really recruit him. So I figured they didn't recruit Larry, that they probably wouldn't recruit me, because I thought Larry was as good as they come as far as athletes, running backs in the city of Columbus, and even the state of Ohio, because he did make an all-state football team. So I just didn't think that I would be recruited. But at Eastmoor, under Coach Bob Stewart, there was a lot of interest. There was a lot of interest from a lot of schools that would come through Eastmoor and look at our athletes. Indiana was one of the places that got a lot of Eastmoor athletes, so I figured that maybe I'd get recruited by Indiana. But my senior year came along, and good things started happening, and schools like the team up north started recruiting me, and Indiana, not Notre Dame, but Purdue, just about every school in the Big Ten other than Minnesota, Wisconsin. Michigan State did not recruit me, but all the other schools in the Big Ten recruited me, and all the Mid-American Conference schools, pretty much, the MAC Conference schools pretty much recruited me. But I think when that team up north started recruiting me, I think Ohio State got interested, a little more interested anyway, because I say that because I used to sit on a board with Bo Schembechler, the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame, and Bo used to tease me all the time. He said, Woody would have never recruited you if I hadn't recruited you first. And I didn't think about that, but maybe it was true. I don't know. But the fact that Ohio State recruited me was special, because when I was a kid living in the Linden area, some of us would go walk over to the stadium on some Saturdays, and we'd be outside the stadium and go through all the pageantry that people would go through on game day. We didn't get into the game, although a couple times they let us in, but we would be there. But it was something that I never thought would really happen, but it did happen, and I'm so glad that it did. And I'll never forget when Woody started recruiting me. I remember I was in wrestling season my senior year, and he called the wrestling coach up to ask if he could speak with me over the phone. I was in the locker room, and Coach came to get me out of the locker room and told me that Woody Hayes was on the phone, and I didn't quite believe him. And so I went in there, got on the phone with Coach Hayes, and I got on the phone. We had a good conversation, and that same evening he invited me to dinner at his favorite restaurant, a place called the Highlight that was on the north side of Ohio State's campus. And I remember how excited I was when he invited me there, because that told me that he was really interested in me playing. at Ohio State. I went home that night after I got through with wrestling practice, uh, uh, got dressed up, went to dinner, had a great dinner with him, had good conversation with him. But to be honest with you, at the end of the dinner, I was a little bit disappointed. Went home that night. My dad, who worked 3 jobs, came home late, as he would always do because of those number of jobs that he worked. My mother told him that I had dinner with Coach Hayes. My dad woke me up, asked me how the dinner went with Coach Hayes, and I told him, I said, Daddy, I don't think he wants me to play football for him. Mm-hmm. He said, why do you say that? I said, because he never said one thing to me about football. He said, well, what did he talk about? I said, all evening, all he talked about was an education and how important it was for me to get a good education. Well, my father looked me dead in the eye and he said, well, don't you think he's concerned about you as a person and not just somebody who's going to get out on the field and run for a lot of yards or score touchdowns for him? Well, right then, I really didn't know. But they continued to recruit me. Coach Hayes, Rudy Hubbard was the main recruiter, who was the backfield coach. They continued to recruit me, and they showed that they were really, really interested. So I decided that I would go to Ohio State, and I'm so glad that I did, because in the first meeting that we attended, the first thing that Coach Hayes told all of us as freshmen is that if we were in school for anything else other than to get an education, then we might as well get up and leave his meeting. And that told me something about Coach Hayes. He had this saying. He said, an athlete without an education could be headed for a bad situation. And when you think about that, especially at that time, it was so true, because a lot of times athletes would go to college just to get the opportunity to play in the professional ranks, not realizing that there's only a very small few that's going to make it from college to the professional ranks. I mean, if you ever look at those numbers, I think you will find that they're truly astounding. Back even at that time, you had about 28 teams in the NFL, and at that time you had 12 rounds of draft, so that 28 times 12, that's 336 athletes, and you had about 60,000 athletes playing college football. So 336 out of 60,000, not very good odds you're going to make it. And then it even slimmed down even a little bit more later on, because now there's only 7 rounds of draft with 32 teams, so you got 224 athletes being drafted, and you still have 60, 70,000 guys playing college football. So the point that he made to us was that you had to have something else to fall back on, and that fallback position that he referred to was good education, good skill, you get out and be able to provide for your families. And that impressed me when Coach Hayes talked about education in front of football. But he really meant that, and he would always ask us about how we're doing in the classroom. He would keep track of what was going on in that classroom. So it meant a lot to me that he cared about what was happening in that classroom. Not only what was going on the football field, but what was happening in that classroom, because he knew that was going to be our key to having success in our future. But he was a great man. I mean, you talk about having to play for him. I mean, he was great to play for. He really was. I knew that he cared about me. I knew that he was going to give me an opportunity. I knew that he cared about each and every person on that team. But what I really liked most about him was that he talked to us about something that really impacted my life, and that's paying forward. I'll never forget, he got it from Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay on compensation, where it says you can never pay back the good that someone may have done for you, but you can always pay forward by helping somebody else or doing something in your community. And Coach Hayes not only talked about that, but he did it. That term, pay it forward. When I was in college, from a freshman throughout my senior year, he'd talk about paying forward. Then all of a sudden I see a movie called Pay It Forward. And then you see all these signs saying paying forward. But he pushed that. And I really believe, and I could be wrong, but I really believe that he is the guy that made that term really deep down in my heart, I wanted to win it, and it became a burden to me actually because it just bothered the heck out of me that I had to go back and play another season, and I didn't want to go backwards. Woody used to have this saying, and I know he didn't mean it to affect anybody the way that it affected me at that time. He used to say, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You never stay the same. And for me at the time, and it was probably a little warped thinking on my part, I felt in order for me to get better or to at least be the same, that I needed to win the Heisman Trophy. And that was a lot of pressure, man. That was a whole lot of pressure. And I'll never forget, I was reading through the Bible one evening, and I came across a verse in the book of Psalms, 37th chapter, 4th verse, where it said, delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Yes. And I remember reading that verse, and I got to tell you something. It was like somebody just lifted that weight right off my shoulder, because that verse told me that my job was to find joy in serving the Lord. And if I would do that, he'd do one of two things. He'd take that desire away from me of wanting to win the Heisman Trophy, or he'd give it to me as a gift. Wow. And that's what he did. He gave it to me as a gift. And that was a big burden off my shoulder. Yeah. So, regardless of how it happened, or if it would not have happened, I'd have been fine with it. Right. Because the Lord was going to make it right.
Well, you're in here preaching. Yeah, you're in here preaching. That's a good word. Yeah. I know it's been a busy fall for you. You've been out in Pasadena. You mentioned it earlier with the Rose Bowl statue, and you come home and Ohio State, Rotunda, and then you get to dot that I. We saw you at the game and looked like you didn't want to come off that field. You were so happy. What was it like being back on that field?
Oh, it was great, man. Yeah. I mean, just to be out there and be amongst the players, even walking around that field. I mean, it's amazing. You don't think about it while you're playing, right? Because you just don't think about it because you're an athlete. Yeah. When you get out there, them big old dudes out there, man, them big old dudes, and you wonder, man, was I taking those kind of hits? I mean, it's all that goes through your mind. Yeah. But it was fun being out there and watching the guys play. Knowing that they're having a lot of fun and having a good time playing for the Ohio State University, because that's something that is very special to have that opportunity to do, play for Ohio State.
After your playing days, you came back to the Ohio State University, served in the athletic department, and then with the alumni department as director. Can you tell the audience, and particularly young people, how important good character is?
Oh, character is everything. I mean, you want to make sure that you treat people right. And that's one of the lessons that my folks always taught us. The golden rule, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Treat people right is basically what it says to me. And that's been one of my leadership principles. My main principle is, if you've got an organization like I had at the Alumni Association, I want to make sure that every employee that I had, I wanted to make sure that they knew that I was going to treat them right, that I was going to be fair to them. One of the reasons that I love Coach Woody Hayes is that no matter how tough he was, I knew that he was going to be fair, that he was going to treat you right, and that's so important. So I always felt that if I treated people right, then I can feel good on the inside. I mean, sometimes you got to make some decisions that people might not like, but at the same time, if you do it in a way that you would want people to do it to you, then you can feel good about the outcome. And to me, that's so important. That's one of the principles that I think of first thing when I'm in a leadership position. Make sure that I treat people the right way, treat people the way that I want to be treated if I was in that situation. And that always helped me out tremendously.
This has been great. I'm loving these stories. As we kind of come around the corner. This is a legacy podcast. You have truly built a lifelong legacy. So what does that word legacy mean to you? And what is the legacy of Archie Griffin?
Oh, that's a great question, Tim. Well, the word legacy means, to me, how you would want people to think of you actually when you're no longer around. You know, when people hear your name, what would you want them to think about? And when I think about that, what I just mentioned would be one of the things that I would like to leave as a legacy, that he treated people right, that he tried to do the right thing. Maybe it didn't come out the way that other people would have wanted it to come out, but that he tried to do the right thing. So treating people right is certainly one of those legacies and things that I would want people to think about me when I'm gone. But I also want them to think about my work ethic. I think that's important. I was so very fortunate when I was in junior high school, at Linmore Junior High School, to come across a man by the name of Oscar Gill. He was a counselor for Linmore. He was an advisor for our student council. We called it HELP, H-E-L-P, Helpers Engaged in Linmore's Progress. And I was president of that organization. But I remember him sitting down with us at a meeting and talking with us about some things he thought would help us be successful in life. And what he talked about was what he called the 3Ds: desire, dedication, and determination. And I remember him telling us that if we'd apply those 3Ds to anything that we want to do in life, then we can be successful. He said, desire, you have to want something out of life, set goals for yourself. Dedication, be committed to achieving those certain goals, and determination, being able to overcome the obstacles that might somehow get in your way. And I remember him telling us that if we'd apply those 3Ds to anything that we want to do, then we could always feel good about ourselves. And we can feel good about ourselves because if we use those 3Ds, in essence, what we've done is we've given a total commitment. And nobody can ask anybody to do anything more than to give a total commitment. And so when you talk about legacy, I want people to know that the things that I did in life, I tried to give a total commitment. I did those things with those 3Ds, that desire, dedication, and determination in mind. I might not have had the result that was better than somebody else's, but I did it with those 3Ds in mind, meaning that I did the best that I could possibly do. And that's all anybody can do.
Right. Wow, that's great. That's great. Wow. Thanks for that. This brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to our special guest, Ohio State football and college football great Archie Griffin, for sharing his wisdom of life lessons learned on the field and off the field. Thank you, Archie, for being an example, not just in talk, but in action.
Well,
as an example for the next generation on how to build a lifelong legacy in faith and in service to uplift others and paying it forward. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me, man. I certainly enjoyed it. That's for sure.
I want to thank the audience for joining us during this enlightening and informative discussion on building a lifelong legacy. Hope this episode was beneficial to you. As always, thanks for listening to Be a Baller podcast.